this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
How do you make chicken nuggets like 7,000% better? Short answer, you let Taco Bell make them. Long answer, start with all white meat chicken nuggets, bread them in crunchy tortilla chips, and serve them with Hidden Valley Diablo Ranch. Yep, that's Hidden Valley Ranch mixed with Taco Bell Diablo sauce. It's exactly what it sounds like, and somehow even better. Simple math, spicy results. Crispy chicken nuggets from Taco Bell. A brand new classic. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only, while supplies last.
Support for The Middle comes from the stations that air the show and from you. Thanks for making a donation at listentothemiddle.com.
Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. Our DJ Tolliver is here as well. And Tolliver, you know, in all the shows we've done every week for the last 2+ years, we have a unique issue this hour.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's that both of our guests are named Elizabeth. So we have an abundance of Elizabeth, and I'm going to have to probably say their full name every time I address them so people know who I'm talking to.
Well, I have to do that with you, Jeremy the Jazzman Hobson.
Right, exactly. That's right. That's the first time I've ever heard that in my life. But, you know, the topic this hour, Tolliver, is caregiving. And it's a topic we've wanted to do for a long time on The Middle, but it keeps getting pushed out of the way because of the news. But when you look at this issue, it's actually hugely important. 1 in 4 U.S. adults is a caregiver for a child or adult with a complex medical condition or disability. Most of them are doing it for free. And if you add up all the time that people spend on caregiving for their loved ones, do you know how much it adds up to in dollars per year?
$20K a person? That's a rough estimate.
I mean, that could be, I know the full number, which is between $600 and $800 billion per year. So it is a very big issue, and it's something that's being exacerbated by a shortage of care workers combined with an overwhelming demand for care. So this hour we're asking, are you prepared to care for a loved one when the time comes? And if you're someone, by the way, who is caring for someone, and you have some advice, we'd love to hear from you too. You can call in at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, last week on the show, we asked if going green matters to you. Here are some of the voicemails that came in after the show.
My name is Scott. I'm calling from Grafton, Ohio. I mean, solar's great where it works and everything, but there is a percentage of the day that it's not generating electricity. However, I think nuclear power can work as part of the mix of a clean energy future.
Hi, my name's Adam West. I'm calling from Nashville. I, in general, feel like we should do what we can to reduce waste. not for some world-ending, apocalypse, but just so that our lakes and rivers are clean and we could go swim in them and fish in them and live in this world comfortably.
Hi, my name is Susan in southwestern Illinois. I just want to say that riding my bicycle to run errands, it's wonderful. I am both getting exercise, saving money, and not polluting. Doesn't get any better than that.
Well, thanks to everyone who called in. And as always, you can hear that whole show by subscribing to The Middle wherever you get your podcasts. So now to our topic this hour. Are you prepared to care for a loved one when the time comes? Tolliver, how can people reach us?
You can call us at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com or comment on social media everywhere.
Well, joining us this hour, Elizabeth Edgerly, Senior Director of Care and Support Programs and Services at the Alzheimer's Association. Elizabeth, great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
And the other Elizabeth Miller, Certified Caregiving Consultant and host of the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. Welcome to you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Well, so Elizabeth Miller, let me start with you, and let's start with the demand side. Is there more need now for caregivers than there was before just because people are living longer?
Absolutely. So we have multiple factors at play, and in particular around Alzheimer's and dementia, but as I'm sure Elizabeth will say, all sorts of issues that people are facing. And so we have more people getting older and needing help at the same time as we have fewer individuals in the field as professional caregivers. So we have this perfect storm, if you will, that's getting worse and worse as we get older. And it's really, we're starting to see it in our neighbors, in our families. It's really all around us that there are more and more people really desperate for help.
Yeah. Elizabeth Miller, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it's everything that Elizabeth Edgerly said. And then also we are outnumbered, right? I think the new stat I heard is that there's 12,000 people age 65 and older every single day. And people are having smaller families, and technology, medications is helping people live longer. We've got a lot of chronic comorbidities, things happening. And it's overwhelming. I've experienced the sandwich generation, and I know firsthand what it's like.
Well, yeah, I mean, tell us a little bit about your personal story. The reason that you have this show that you do started when your father passed away, and then you had to be a caregiver for a brother and your mom at the same time.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have some supportive siblings for sure, but I have an older brother with an intellectual and developmental disability on the autism spectrum, and my father and my mother-in-law actually passed away the same year, so we were simultaneously squeezed in our family. And then I became a primary caregiver for my mom, and we had to figure out what we were going to also do with our brother. So there's a lot of sharing the care and things happening there, but I was also working full-time. Let's not forget that over 70% of caregivers are also working a full-time job. So you talk about the invisible labor that we're doing, but we also have to work to pay our own bills.
Absolutely. And Elizabeth Edgerly, one thing that many people want to do in a situation like that, if they can afford it, is to hire somebody, but there's a shortage. Why is there such a shortage of people who can do this kind of work for pay?
It's a tough job. I'm going to say that first and foremost. It doesn't pay very well, and it can be really difficult. And so what happens is people can make more at the local coffee shop sometimes than they can working in assisted living or home care or a nursing home. And so sadly, they make these choices. And so what we look for, though, are people where they want their job to really feel their passion too. And that's the good news, is that there are people who turn to that kind of work because they're passionate about helping others. But the reality is we have this tremendous shortage, and we need 900,000 more individuals in the field in the next 7 years just to keep up with the demand. And part of it too is the turnover is tremendously high. So in, for example, assisted living and nursing homes, it can be as much as 100% turnover in a year. And home care is not much better. So it makes it really hard to have someone you trust who stays with you for a longer period of time.
Well, and then there's the issue of money. Medicare, for example, Elizabeth Miller, does not pay for long-term nursing home care. What kind of support is there from the government or other places if you're trying to pay for this kind of thing?
Yeah, well, it's really fragmented, Jeremy. And like you said, it's shocking to a lot of people that Medicare does not pay for long-term care. And so as a person that's, in the middle, what are your choices? Our choices are long-term care insurance, which is super expensive. You may have some veteran benefits that you can tap into. There's an arduous process for Medicaid, and every state has a different Medicaid process and a different long waiting list. Some states do have some caregiver benefits where you could potentially be a paid family caregiver, but those are far and few between, and there's a lot of paperwork involved in that. So adding yet one more thing for the family caregiver to do to figure it all out.
The other thing I'm wondering about, I'll go to you, Elizabeth Edgerly, on this first, is how difficult is it to shift your perspective when you are the family caregiver and treat your loved one as a patient rather than a family member or a partner?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeremy. And it is hard. It's very difficult to separate. I was a caregiver for my mother who had Lewy body dementia. And there were times, I have to confess, where I know better than to do some of the things that I did. And yet, because she was my mom and I had a whole lifetime of how she and I interacted, I would hear myself saying something that in my professional world, I would strongly discourage people from saying. So I think trying to stop, take a breath and pause and be objective sometimes in a moment can be really helpful. Not easy, but helpful. And I do think training for caregivers and education and really trying to learn as much as you can from others who've gone through it is very helpful. And ideally before it happens, because once you're in it, you're like, what just happened? And even for those of us, I don't want to speak for the other Elizabeth here, but even if you're sort of an expert, you'll find yourself in these moments where you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do here? How do I handle this?
Yeah, I'm living it right now, actually, with my brother. Like, I cared for my folks, so that was like one avenue, but caring for my brother who's on the autism spectrum and has an intellectual and developmental disability, like completely different resources and paths. And so I've been working in this space for over 10 years, and I'm learning and finding out new things every single day.
Well, and how much of your time do you have to spend taking care of your brother?
That is a great question. And, I started tracking it because I think it's important that we make this invisible labor more visible. And so since May, I have been tracking my hours that I've been spending with my brother. And keep in mind, I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't have the paid time off and the things that I had back when I was working my corporate job with my folks. So it ends up being 20 hours or 20 to 25 hours a month, which you think is like, that's half of a work week that, potentially I'm spending caregiving. And he doesn't live with me. He currently lives in a community about an hour from me, but I'm still his person that takes him to his appointments and does things. So imagine somebody has somebody living with them that has more demand on them, and they're still raising kids and trying to juggle a job. Yeah. It's more than a person can handle.
Well, I'm very interested to hear what our listeners have to say. Again, you can call in at 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com. And we'd love to hear from you if you are a caregiver or if this is something that you haven't thought about. Maybe you have questions for our guests about caregiving. Again, 844-464-3353. Tolliver, there has been some effort recently in Washington, D.C. to deal with this so-called caregiver crisis.
Yeah, that's right. It was actually included as part of President Biden's Build Back Better spending plan. Here he was back in 2020.
Today, I'm outlining the third plank of my Build Back Better program, mobilizing a 21st century care and elderly childhood education workforce to deal with the caregiving crisis, and it's a crisis in this country. If we truly want to reward work in this country, we have to ease the financial burden of care that families are carrying.
Well, when the Build Back Better plan became the Inflation Reduction Act, that provision about caregiving was removed from the legislation, Tolliver. So nothing
priorities,
happened.
Right?
Exactly. But, there are some things that are being talked about in Congress right now, so we'll see if this comes up again. But, once you get into an election year, it's very hard for anybody to get anything done. We'll be right back with your calls coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call the doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, and philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking if you're prepared to care for a loved one when that time comes. Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on all social media.
I'm joined by Elizabeth Miller, host of the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, and Elizabeth Edgerly at the Alzheimer's Association. The phone lines are lighting up, so I'm going to go to Chris, who is calling in from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Chris, tell us, are you caring for a loved one, or are you prepared for this?
Well, I am both. I was both not prepared, and I am still caring for my father. So this was sort of thrust upon me with an emergency situation where my father was in another state. He was in Massachusetts. I live in Pennsylvania. Had no documents prepared for himself, and ended up in the emergency room in 2019 in Massachusetts. We navigated his finances, his medical care, his legal documents, And then COVID hit in March of 2020, the day after I had him sign a will. And so we navigated Medicaid in 2 different states and moving him from one place to another in Massachusetts and in Pennsylvania to our home, which is a very old structure.
What would you say, Chris, is the lesson that you learned through all of that? Is there some piece of advice you would pass on to our listeners about something you learned in dealing with your father?
I would say if you are an older person, get your house in order. Have your legal documentation ready. Have conversations with your family. I had 3 young children at home. I was still working during COVID in a very stressful job. And as a woman, it fell on me and me alone. I think know who your supports are in your state, because it is not the same in every state.
Yeah, interesting.
So know who your corporation for aging is. Yeah. Be in touch with ombudspeople in your state, and know how to navigate those systems, because in so many ways you are alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that call, Chris. I appreciate it. And Elizabeth Edgerly, one of the things that she said there was, to the people who may be cared for, make sure you get your house in order and make it a little easier on the people who are going to care for you.
I love that suggestion. And it makes a huge difference knowing what someone wants for themselves, especially if and when they lose capacity to make those decisions, and you're the one who's trying to do it. But handling legal issues and all of those things, just listening to Chris, it's so hard. And you're right, they're different in every state. So what might work in Pennsylvania may have nothing to do with Massachusetts. And so it's like you have to become an expert. So reaching out for help is really, really important. You should not try doing this all by yourself.
Let's go to George, who's calling in from Naperville, Illinois. Hi, George. Go ahead. Welcome to the middle.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I was listening to the podcast on the radio, and I wanted to share my story, one, because Christmas is coming, and also to honor my wife's legacy. So I was my wife's caretaker for the 10 years that when she was diagnosed with colon cancer. She fought through this terrible disease. I wasn't prepared to be her caregiver because I would never expect this to happen to my wife, because she was a very healthy person, and unfortunately, this diagnosis pretty much changed our lives. So, through the years that, she was struggling with this disease, I was helping her, with all the medical, like the appointments, surgeries, and everything. So this was probably one of the most difficult things to go through for us. But I was there for her, during this time. So I really wanted to share this, this story over the radio.
Thank you, George, for that. Let me just ask you one question. Were you able to, for example, continue working while you were doing that?
No. So at that time, I had to make a lot of drastic changes. So, I at first, I had a full-time job, and so I tried to, to work the hours, but it was becoming, increasingly more grueling because it was an 8 to 5 job. So I had to just come back home on many occasions, and then there was all these appointments. So it was really a burden for me, so, and then taking care of my son as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that call, George. And Elizabeth Miller, a couple things there. But what do you say to people about whether they should continue to work when they feel that they need to be with their loved one who's going through, cancer or whatever else?
Yeah, I think, they need a lot of validation, first of all, and you make the best decisions with the information that you have at the time. But I do think sometimes our gut reaction can be to jump ship off of employment, but also I think we have a responsibility to think also down the road about what that's doing for our own financial future. I know in our case, for my husband and I, we did not want to put our kids in a tough situation financially, and we're in the peak of our career earning years, so you have to really weigh a lot of different factors, and there's not a one size solution for all. But I think the point that here is that this isn't just a family issue, this is an employer issue as well, because it's hopefully they're seeing that they want to keep their valued employees. I know in my case, when I was working my corporate job, I was lucky that I had some options that I could, there is FMLA, sometimes paid or unpaid leave that you can look at depending on the size of your company. And so there's sometimes are options. I think you could potentially go part-time. Maybe for me, I had to adjust my job where I was doing a lot of traveling and that wasn't working for me, but I could work within my company to find a different position where I could be home, and have more flexibility. So I think it's a conversation that I want to encourage people to have with their employer first and look at everything with their family. And if you can do it, then certainly make that choice, but it is not one that a lot of families are able to make.
Well, and it's probably not one where in every case the employer is willing to be cooperative and helpful. Right. Let's go to Mimi, who's calling from outside Houston, Texas. Hi, Mimi. Go ahead with your thoughts on this.
Yes, hello. I'm calling regarding caregiving of small children. Right now, I'm taking care of my husband who has Alzheimer's. I'm also the former caregiver of a type 1 diabetic who was diagnosed at about 11 months old and was fully breastfed at that time. And I wish to acknowledge that these people who take care of the little ones, the very, very small ones, at type 1 diabetics especially, it's very, very difficult.
Even compared to taking care of somebody with Alzheimer's, you're saying?
Yes. It's for a very little one. Now, I think maybe perhaps today it's easier because they might have. I don't know if they can give them pumps today, but back when my child was small, we could not. And his twin had a very, very rare form of leukemia with a bone marrow transplant, was a Make-A-Wish child, etc. And taking care of him was a whole lot easier than taking care of a type 1 diabetic. And wow. I think the type 1 diabetes is extremely difficult, especially with little ones.
Yeah. Is there any piece of advice, Mimi, that you would give to our audience about what they should do if they're in a situation like you've been in?
Well, I'm saying that nowadays, if you can get them on an insulin pump as soon as they can, that's the best thing to do. The best thing. Okay. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much for that. Elizabeth Edgerly, I mean, just thinking about somebody who's taking care of 3 different people and small children, a husband with Alzheimer's, it's just a lot to think about. And who could be prepared for that?
It's incredibly humbling, actually, to hear what people are sharing with us. And one thing I want to make a point about is most of us, not all, but don't know we're caregivers when we are caregivers, and myself included. I had to have our call center. I called once for some information, and they said, "Do you know you're a long distance caregiver?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And we consider ourselves partners, spouses, daughters, sons, whatever, parents, and yet we're also in this dual role of being caregivers for that individual. And so recognizing that sooner is helpful because caregiver resources exist. Yeah. And so if we figure out that we are one of those people, it can really help in the journey.
Tolliver, what is coming in at listentothemiddle.com?
Sure. Kiara says, I am caring for my mom who has severe vision loss and no longer can drive or read. Kiara goes on to express frustration because the care falls on her because she's the closest family member with no kids, which I think is a prescient point. John, listening from NHPR, says, "Hi, I'm a nurse practitioner in New Hampshire and specialize in providing home-based primary care to the elderly. Making the transition from home to long-term care is very difficult, and the Medicaid process takes many months, sometimes a year or more." And he goes on to say that sometimes it's almost better if somebody has a medical emergency because then they can get better long-term care.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you know, to hear from a person who does this for a living, I wonder, Elizabeth Miller, how the immigration crackdown has affected what's happening here. There was a KFF analysis that found that while foreign-born workers, they actually make up 1 in 3 home care workers. Has that been affected dramatically by just the immigration crackdown?
Honestly, I'm not equipped to speak accurately on that, but I do think that the crisis that we have is that we're not paying enough for the work. And I think if it were a more attractive job where we were paid enough for it, we could probably fill the jobs and keep them for, because when we've talked about how the turnover really affects family caregivers, and that they're the person training the home care workers over and over again. So you think that you've got somebody who's really a fit for your family, and then maybe they're not paid enough and they've got to leave, or something else happens where they're removed from the situation, and then they've got to train and do it all over again. So I really want to see the value of that work, both for the unpaid family caregiver and for the professional caregiver, increase, so that it is an attractive job that we can accurately and effectively hire for.
Let's go to Jim, who's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Hi, Jim. Are you prepared to care for a loved one, or are you already doing so?
I'm already doing so, and we were 100% not prepared. I was undergoing, I had surgery for cancer, and a week afterwards, I was on the road 12 and a half hours to Oklahoma, where my mom was dying, and she had not told anybody how bad my dad's onset dementia was. And she passed away like a week later, and then he was living in our guest room for over a year, almost 2 years. We just got him into assisted living, and it really hurts the family, my family, that our relationship it's not been great. It's like, I got an 18-year-old. It's crazy.
Did your dad resist going into assisted living?
No, albeit he thought he was going to go into assisted living in Texas near my brother, because he thought it was a cooler place to live. But my brother just wimped out and was not able to help at all. He could not emotionally handle it, so dumped it all on us.
All right, Jim. Well, thank you very much for that call. And Elizabeth Edgerly, your thoughts there, as you hear Jim's story.
Well, Jim raised so many good points, but one is that not all family members agree. Not all family members feel like it's their responsibility. And that can be one of the biggest challenges. It's such a roller coaster ride under the best of circumstances. But then you have siblings or others who are questioning what you're doing, not stepping up, or getting in the way. And so it's just really, really tough on all accounts. So I appreciate, Jim, you raising that issue, because many people are relating to that comment right now.
Do you have any advice for people who end up getting into a family struggle over this, where the brothers and sisters don't agree on what needs to happen or who should be taking care? Should they be sharing it? Should it be one person?
Yeah, and Elizabeth said this before. There's not like one necessarily right way to do this. I do think direct communication with everybody right from the beginning and trying to involve people so they know what's going on too is helpful, and then talking about it. I do think there's some free resources. The Alzheimer's Association has an 800 number and a wonderful website and resources, and kind of pull those together and share them with one another and say, okay, Jeremy, you can't help mom now, but can you contribute some money? Can you help pay for this program? And we kind of try and divvy it up. a bit.
Yeah.
So I think talking about it makes a big difference.
Elizabeth Miller, what would you say?
I think, family dynamics is something that comes up all the time, right? And I've, lived it in my own family where I'm one of 6 kids and we've got varying strengths and weaknesses and willingness to kind of show up, in ways for my brother. And I know it can be really frustrating to bang your head against the wall and wish that the people around you that you feel like should show up and they don't show up. But honestly, everybody's got different strengths and weaknesses. We all have different capacity. I know once I learned how to accept and just say, okay, this person's not going to be involved. Let me look around and find the people who are. And I think family is certainly one source of help, but is not the only source of help.
You're one of 6. I'm one of 7. And one thing that I know is you cannot get the whole family together for a vacation without getting into huge fights. So 1-on-1 trips or 2-on-2, that's fine, but not everybody all at once, Tolliver. It is helpful. We've heard from so many ordinary Americans this hour, but it's helpful when somebody that everyone knows comes out and says they're dealing with an issue that isn't talked about that much, like Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yeah, one of those people is former late-night host Jay Leno, who has been caring for his wife Mavis for years as she battles dementia. Here he is on Adam Carolla's podcast.
Jay, I got to ask you about Mavis. How is her health? How's she doing?
She's doing okay. It's okay. It's anybody that deals with Alzheimer's or dementia kind of knows what this is. She's not in any pain. You try to find the humor in the situation, but she's not walking.
And how's that sitting with you? I mean, are you okay? Is it?
She's always been fiercely independent. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that she needs me.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. We will be right back with more of your calls on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
You see it instantly. It's Cold Water Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured 2 prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So
No, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, right, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife.
Boom, boom. This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. In this hour, we're asking if you're prepared to care for a loved one when the time comes. I'm joined by Elizabeth Edgerly at the Alzheimer's Association and Elizabeth Miller, host of the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. Our number is 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353, or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. And again, full phone lines. Let's go to Susanna, who's in Buffalo, New York. Hi, Susanna. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Oh, hello. Good evening. My name is Susanna. I'm actually calling just to offer a perspective of someone who actually is needing care from family. I am someone that has been a disabled individual due to a muscle disease, and I've been in a wheelchair since I was a child. And now that I'm, in my mid-30s, I've had my family, adjust their lives trying to help me. My parents have had to take a part-time job, and then my siblings have had to work around their careers as well, taking work-from-home positions just so that way they would be able to assist me. I also, work from home myself as a full-time job, so it's also difficult for them to be able to be, I know it was mentioned, to be paid for services. This is mostly dependent on services like Medicaid. Since I do have a full-time job and I am employed, I don't meet the thresholds for, to qualify for Medicaid. So they are just having to, adjust their financial lives and their lives overall just to help, me live a viable life.
What do you say to them?
Well, I am grateful for their help. They are very they're attentive, to my needs, and they give up a lot, to help care for me, just like all caregivers do to help their loved ones. Sorry, my throat is breaking up a little, just because I do appreciate their support, after all these years, and just helping me, live as best I can and to, be a productive member of society and contribute meaningfully. So it's just, a lot of their time that they give, and that's very appreciative. I don't think I'd ever be able to pay them back for that.
Yeah. Susanna, I so appreciate your call. Thank you so much for calling in and bringing that perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
You too. Elizabeth Miller, very nice to have that perspective of somebody who is being cared for.
I think, what I loved about what Susanna was sharing is that it was clear that there's a care partnership there, that they're working together. And I honestly love the term care partner more than I love the word caregiver, but it's already hard enough for us to identify as a caregiver. But I think that is a visual of it's a partnership. And when you're looking at your care team of who's showing up to help, you also have to look at your care recipient as a member of that care team, because part of our purpose as a family caregiver is to help that person be as independent for as long as possible, because that is going to be best for their happiness and their health as well, which is going to in turn be happy and healthy for the family caregiver. So the care partnership is golden.
Important. Let's get to Jenny in Kansas City, Missouri. Hi, Jenny. What about you? Are you prepared to care for a loved one? Are you caregiving right now?
I'm caring for my 20-year-old son. He has autism, and so it's just difficult to navigate everything and cost for things like I really needed to have gotten guardianship of him once he turned 18. So there are certain things that I can do, but then there's certain things I can't because I don't have legal guardianship. But the guardianship paperwork would have cost me about $5,000, and that's more than I bring home in a month. So
yeah,
it's just difficult, and that's actually a lower cost than what others have paid for the paperwork, but it makes it so I have to try to get his permission for things that so I'm still sort of his parent the way I was when he was under 18, but then struggling with what I can legally and can't legally do.
Yeah, and he is not always giving you his permission. Is that the inference there? Is that sometimes it's a battle between the two of you to be able to do the things that you feel are necessary?
It's a battle because he's probably functionally mid-teens, so probably somewhere between 12 to 14. So he's old enough to know that he should be an adult, and so he tells me, I'm an adult and I don't have to listen to this or whatever. But so it's just, it's an extra. But
well, it's a great point. I'm glad you brought up guardianship, Jenny. Thank you for doing that. Elizabeth Edgerly, that is something that people who have an elderly parent with Alzheimer's or dementia may have to do as well. $5,000 sounds really quite obscene to me for something like that.
Yeah, and what we really try to do, and that wouldn't work in this case, is for people in the early stages, people who are newly diagnosed, if they don't have some legal papers put in place already for durable power of attorney, for healthcare decisions and finances, those make a huge difference in being able to act on behalf of someone else. And again, ideally you want to choose that person, because you wouldn't choose just anybody. You want to choose someone who you really trust and who will act on your behalf. And so we often try to work with families, and for both individuals, not just the person with Alzheimer's or another dementia. We all need this because you never know. And so trying to do that ahead of time, that's not the case for Jenny in her situation with her son. But the other thing I do want to say is sometimes there are some lower cost legal aid available at the county level, depending on where you live. So I do encourage people to reach out, and Elizabeth Miller will know more about caregiving for younger individuals than I do, but for seniors, there are programs out there that may have free legal aid, for example. And so if you're in that situation, really, let's turn over every rock we can to see, is there anything that's going to help me here?
Yeah. One of the terms that's come up as we've been talking about this is the sandwich generation, people who are taking care both of an elderly relative and maybe a child. Rebecca is calling in from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and sounds like is a member of the sandwich generation. Rebecca, go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I have a 20-year-old daughter with something called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which is she's nonverbal and has an active seizure disorder. And I am her legal guardian, and she'll be with us long term. And at the same time, my mom has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. My husband is currently in Pennsylvania helping his father move into an assisted living program. And so I have been both kind of navigating the care of my daughter's one of three children, as well as my parents, and then also thinking ahead of what our future looks like with a dependent child in a way that we won't be a burden on our boys, because this has been so challenging with both sets of our parents. And since we will have this extra challenge of our daughter, I've been thinking about, gosh, what are our options, 20 years from now in terms of, do we move together into some kind of assisted living facility? What is that going to look like? So I've just been wanting to prepare to age a little better, because it's been very difficult to help both sets of our parents. They've been very resistant to our help, but at the same time calling us regularly and asking for our help. So it's sort of like, help me, go away, come here kind of thing.
Rebecca, let me just ask you one question, which is, do you take the time to give yourself some grace and some credit for all the work that you're doing and even thinking ahead to how you could make other people's lives easier in the future?
Wow, I don't know, but I'll receive that from you.
Yes.
I do think caregivers often, I do think sometimes we forget that we're pouring out a lot on a regular basis, and so it is very affirming to be reminded of that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your call, Rebecca. Thank you. And Elizabeth Miller, it makes me think of, when you're on the airplane and they say, put your mask on first before you help others.
Yeah.
I mean, do caregivers spend enough time thinking about how to make sure that they are not going to just be completely overwhelmed by the amount of work they're doing for somebody else?
I mean, that is the purpose of what I'm trying to do. And honestly, we do hear the oxygen mask analogy a lot, but I don't love it. And the reason why I don't love it, Jeremy, is because there's no flashing lights, mask coming from the ceiling, someone coming on, turbulence to say, now's the time you need to take care of yourself. Like this is somebody's life. Like they are on a roller coaster or a treadmill or a hamster wheel that never stops. And so there's no big signs like that. And so for me, I had to figure out that I kind of equated it to feeding a nest of hungry birds, and that I was the bird going to get the nourishment for my job and my kids and my pets and my home and my care recipient and all the things that were pecking time from me. And yet there was this aha moment of, oh my goodness, if I don't go and take some nourishment for myself, I'm not going to be able to keep showing up for all of these people. And that's really something that I hope is clicking with the people who are listening, is that this got to be a sustainable solution, and there aren't some great answers out there. And so until we can, get everything magically fixed, we have to really depend on our community to help us. And we've got to be vulnerable and let those cracks show so that we can get that support and get that relief and the validation that we need.
We've got a question coming in from Baltimore, Maryland. Mona is on the line. Mona, what's your question? Mona? Oh, maybe Mona.
Back.
Oh, there she is. Okay,
Hello?
yeah, Mona, go ahead with your question.
Hi. So I'm still living with my parents, and thank God they're still, healthy and have their mind. But I'm wondering, what are some ways I can start bringing up this conversation of we got to get your stuff together before I do move out or go study abroad, and what are also some things we as a family can start putting together to get ourselves ready, God forbid, if there was to be a situation in which we have to start delegating care and step into that caregiver role, essentially.
Yeah. Mona, let me just ask you one question. How old are you?
I'm 23.
23. Okay, thank you for that call. Let's get an answer. Elizabeth Edgerly, what do you say to Mona?
Yeah, Mona, you know what I was thinking of? The conversation with you and your parents say, I just heard this radio show talking about how important it is to have this conversation with your parents. And also, I want to know what you want. Have you thought about this? And start the conversation. You may not be successful the first time you try. So if it's why are you asking me that? I recommend, you keep trying and you try different ways and you go a little bit at a time, and also include yourself. Although at 23, people might say, oh, you don't need it, but we all need to plan ahead for just in case something were to happen. So I love that you're asking this question, and I do hope your parents are happy to have you ask that question, because it shows tremendous compassion and forethought that you want them to have it the way they want it, if at all possible. So I love that.
Gary is calling in from Las Vegas. Hi, Gary. Are you a caregiver for anyone right now?
Yes, I am. I'm a caregiver for my 100-year-old mother. I'm 70, and fortunately, it's gone very well for myself, my sister, even my ex-wife helped a bunch.
And why do you think it's gone well?
Well, I guess a lot of reasons. My mom and my dad had left my mom sufficient finances, so when it was time to go into assisted living, that there's no financial issues. We planned in advance. Over the years, as she got older, she began. So myself and my sister. I live in the same town as Mom, and so we began to put her various accounts in my name so I could control that. All her various investments all went into one, like Charles Schwab account, so it wasn't a mess. When it was time to sell her house, that went well. The proceeds went into the account. Again, I was very fortunate. Her health was good. Her health is still good today. At 100 years old, yes, she has a bit of dementia, and she doesn't see or hear real well. She has a great attitude. So again, very fortunate. She's very positive. So it's just gone. And I don't mean to gloat. And I know most people that have called in have had much tougher situations. And we've just been very fortunate. But there's been some good planning, also.
Yeah. Hey, I think that's a great call to end the hour on because, it's the holiday season, Gary, and I appreciate you ending us on a nice note about how well things are going. Just so thank you so much for that. Elizabeth Miller, before we do go, what would you say is the biggest piece of advice you would give to our listeners who are not yet caregivers, but want to do something right now so that they are prepared when that time comes?
Yeah, I think that we're all going to be caregivers at some point. So if anyone's listening and you're not in that position, and I think it's, thinking about what you want to be true, having the conversations about yourself and your family members, and knowing what your values are and what's important to you. And, the conversations are everything. And so if you can get in front of that proactively, you're going to have more options and choices involved. I know sometimes you kind of expect and see it coming, and you're probably thinking, maybe, is this what are some of these responsibilities going to come to me? What would happen if? And sometimes it doesn't go as planned. Oftentimes it does not go as planned. And so you can make the best plans, but you still need the community support.
Elizabeth Edgerly, what would you say?
Yeah, I think, around Alzheimer's specifically, I think trying to learn as much as you can. I think I've said that a few times. There's some great resources. The Alzheimer's Association, for example, we just launched a new app called My Alz Journey, and it's for care partners and for people with a diagnosis, because what we hear from so many individuals is they get a diagnosis and they don't get anything else. They don't get any referrals, treatments, help. And so we thought, okay, we can help a bit with that. But people need to reach out and get that help too.
Try to get as much information as they can. Elizabeth Edgerly, Senior Director of Care and Support Programs and Services at the Alzheimer Association, and Elizabeth Miller, Certified Caregiving Consultant and host of the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. Thanks so much to both of you for joining us.
Thank you for this conversation.
And you can continue this conversation by calling us or emailing us anytime, Tolliver.
Yeah, our number is 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can go to listentothemiddle.com to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter, which is now on Substack.
And by the way, we can see what people click on the Substack newsletter. And Tolliver, I'm happy to tell you that your Tolliver's Tidbits links are some of the most popular things on there. So thank you for that. People can check it out.
My head's getting bigger and bigger, man.
The Middle is brought to you by Long Neck Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmistaz, John Barth, Annika Deschler, and Brandon Kondritz. Our technical director is Steve Mork. Thanks to our satellite radio listeners, our podcast audience, and the hundreds of public radio stations that are making it possible for people across the country to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. Happy holidays. I'll talk to you next week.
It never happens at a good time. The pipe bursts at midnight. The heater quits on the coldest night. Suddenly, you're overwhelmed. That's when home serve is here. For $4.99 a month, you're never alone. Just call their 24/7 hotline and a local pro is on the way. Trusted by millions, HomeServe delivers peace of mind when you need it most. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. That's homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.